From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of myBurbank Talks, presented by the staff of myBurbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hi, Ashley Erikson, myBurbank reporter here, and we are with our first episode of myBurbank, myCommunity. My guest today is Amy Hammis from the Recycling Center. She is a recycling specialist, and she's here to talk about reducing your waste this winter during the holiday season. So thank you for joining us today.
Thankful to be here.
Yeah, so the first step in waste reduction and management is to prevent waste, correct?
Reduce, reuse.
Yes, those are the most important steps. So you're going to help us today with some ideas to make our gift giving and holiday traditions a little more sustainable.
Yeah.
So in a presentation you recently did, you talked about Scroogenomics. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Scroogenomics.
It's a book, yes.
Tell me what that means and how it relates to waste reduction.
Yeah. It's a book that I got off of Buy Nothing site in where I live. I don't live in Burbank, but and for like 20 years, I kind of got to a point where the hustle and the bustle, the stress, the debt, families expanding, people getting a divorce, bringing new people in that you don't know that well. And we have these gift exchange. You don't know what to buy people because you don't know them that well anymore. And things were just getting really stressful to me. And so I was really starting to think about how can I change what's going on at the holidays, make it a lot more enjoyable and less focused on some of the things that may not be as important as we kind of think, from our traditions. And a few years ago, I got this book. Someone had offered it up for free, which I love that. And so I read it, and it's a small little book. It's not a huge one, deep dive on it, but it really was connecting the dots on some of the things we're doing. Just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's as effective as we think it is.
Yeah.
So Scroogenomics obviously is a take on economics and what the satisfaction level of the gift giving that we do. And so when we buy things for ourselves all throughout the year, which we shop all the time now, right? Compared to generations before us, um, we get a dollar satisfaction for the most part for most things we buy. There might be something on impulse or we regret later. For the most part, though, we get the dollar value of what we.
So we're buying the things that we want and that we hold value to.
Yeah, and we paid the price, so we know what we're getting into. But when you do a gift giving, it's a completely different paradigm. And so, yes, maybe your son or whatever wanted something exact, so they're super excited. But sometimes, I'm going to get him a shirt too, and that might not have been something that they're as excited about. And so you paid $50 for that shirt, but to the normal person that you gave the recipient, they may have paid $10. So there's an economic loss. And so in Scroogenomics, they call that a deadweight loss. So even though we're doing this, we feel good about at least giving something, but sometimes we're unsure too. I don't know if they're going to like it or not, but I know I have to do it, so I'm doing it. And so that valuation goes down quite a bit. And so because of the debt we go into and all these other things, it actually ends up for a lot of the things that we are giving, there actually might not be the satisfaction that we are intending. And maybe we need to rethink that, both from a traditional standpoint and an economic one as well.
So it's just like recreating the whole holiday tradition of gift giving. Like we're just rethinking it all.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you don't do any, but maybe we don't go as crazy as we do. Because again, when I'm in my late 50s, and before we had access to credit like we do, people used to have a thing called a Christmas account where you'd save money throughout the year or you would put things on layaway. And as credit became more a part of our lives and our ability to tolerate debt grew, we were just buying things throughout the year. But back when I was growing up, Christmas was incredibly special because that was pretty much, other than your birthday, the only time you really got anything. So it was really special. But so we've kind of kept that traditional mindset. But at the same time, we haven't evolved to where things are today where we're buying stuff all the time. So is it as special as it is? And I think, anybody listening to this today, I really want to just kind of put the disclaimer out. I'm not trying to change anybody's habits. And if they really love Christmas and this is their favorite, then this is their thing. You don't have to listen. These are just suggestions, but this is.
But you have alternatives.
But we're trying to, rethink it a little bit instead of just being just kind of mindless that this is just what you do. Because a lot of people are very stressed at the holidays, and if they could change something about it, then maybe there's something in this conversation today that makes them at least think, oh, okay, well, I'm not a bad person for thinking this because other people have been, and maybe we can tame that down a little bit and maybe focus more on the cheer,
Mm-hmm.
the family, the experiences
Yeah.
rather than the stuff.
And I think especially living in this world of consumerism where it's so accessible to shop online and Amazon, you have everything really that you need. When you need something, you purchase it. And
Yeah.
so the gifts that you're normally getting during the holidays are usually things you don't need. They're just these excess of coffee mugs or,
Yes. And who needs
face
another
masks.
coffee mug?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that you feel like you have to do it too.
Yeah.
Like, or if you just show up at someone's house, you have to bring something.
Yeah.
Granted, there's, a bottle of wine or something like that, but a lot of times people just think you have to give a gift all the time, or you're a bad friend or a bad person.
Yeah.
And I would say if anybody really was asked, would they rather have this little trinket, as a gesture, or would they rather have, take them out to lunch
Mm-hmm.
or have an experience with them?
Yeah.
And so I think we just really, I guess you just need someone like me to say, maybe the experience might be the thing you might want to think about and
Yeah.
introducing more of those things than the things.
Well, consumers are planning to spend over $1,600 this season on
Mm-hmm.
gifts, right? And so that surpasses the pre-pandemic figures,
Yes.
which you mentioned in your presentation. This contributes to more deliveries, more boxes, more production of things.
Yeah.
How do you see this impacting us in the long run?
Well, I mean, the economy is run by consumption, which is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because, consumption leads to disposal, and the things that we dispose of were natural resources at one point. So we are going to have to start to really rethink some of our economic models, right? Is it just about buying things, using it up, and disposing of it? So, and with online, I mean, there's some definite benefits. The convenience, of course, especially someone who maybe is disabled or has challenges with shopping. And the stores now are not, stocking as much inventory, or there's just something you love and you can't find it locally at the store. So provides some benefit, of course,
Hmm.
but it also is a lot of boxes. I mean, we're using boxes one time that's shipped to one, family with a lot of adhesives and stickers and things like that. And so at a retailer, they wouldn't have as much as those adhesives and the shipping labels. So the quality of the cardboard tends to be a little bit better.
Mm.
Not that the paper mills that we sell things to can't handle those adhesives, but it's one of those things that just degrades the value of it. You've ever
Yeah.
pulled off a piece of adhesive, some of that cardboard material stays on the tape.
Yeah.
So it's just these things that, like, well, how would the public even know that, right? But I would again argue, is that box really a single use? That tree
Yeah.
that made it, is that really a single use or could it be reused in some way? And so my challenge also is to get to people to think, is there any way to reuse some of these boxes at least one or two times or
Mhm.
store things in it
Yeah.
before it comes to us at the recycle center? We still want it,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's single use, but we've been treating it and it's expanding to single use, and I think that's a little bit of a warning sign
Yeah,
that we
that's a
need to
big
be
wake-up
rethinking.
call.
Yeah,
And especially when you get that little Amazon when you're checking out, it's like, do you want to put everything in one box? It'll come later. It's like, you're like, I want it now.
I want
Like,
it now. I want it now, Daddy.
yeah. So
Um,
just like waiting, being a little more patient, putting things into one box, shopping all at
I love
once.
that.
And, I'm sure that's
And I don't
helpful.
shop online that much, so I didn't even know they do that. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's one way to do it. Now, granted, when you're in the crunch time of
Yeah.
holidays and the delivery delays, are much more delayed during that time because of the, just the volume. Yeah, maybe that's not an option. But,
Yeah.
if you're thinking again ahead for next year too,
Yeah.
or just again, we're shopping all throughout the year, try and put it in one box. That's fantastic.
So, in terms of reducing waste and giving unsatisfied gifts to recipients, what are your top favorite gift ideas this holiday season?
Well, one of my favorite slides in this presentation, it's like, homemade. It's not for it's not from
Hmm.
grandma anymore, right? Because, you think about homemade gifts, a lot of people are just like, they roll their eyes. And then some people are just not that crafty. But Etsy and Pinterest have really made a huge leap in making this a lot cooler. And dare I say that some of the things that people make are much more appreciated than the store-bought thing that they
Yeah.
could have made themselves. So that also makes that gift a lot more unique. So for me personally, one of the things I started doing, and trust me, I am not crafty. I'm not even that good of a cook, but I have fruit trees in my property that go to waste. And a girlfriend of mine started making jam, and I never thought of it because that's just not who I am. And sometimes these things just take somebody showing you, or
Yeah.
making the suggestions, or you just come across it and you wouldn't even thought of it. So I make jam every year. And so that's kind of like my go-to.
Yeah.
Even it's my gesture gift too,
And I feel like with handmade gifts, the value is higher than what you put in. Like how you talk
Absolutely.
about like giving a gift with a low value. It's because you're putting in your time and the time is so valuable.
Yeah.
People respect that and appreciate that.
Yeah, and people like food, even
Yeah.
if it's maybe not something they could use, maybe someone in their family, or they can regift it too, because that's a reuse. That's part of the R's,
Yep.
right? And the other thing I really like doing is you can do spice mixes. It helps to know a little bit about the person, but sometimes you can just do more that are more general. Everybody kind
Yeah.
of makes something Mexican, so you could do like some type of Mexican spice or Asian spice. Because you buy those things online or at a spice store. Well, it's a
Yeah.
really easy thing to do. You just mix the stuff together
I'm
and
sure
put
on
it in a nice.
Pinterest, there's tons of
Yeah.
recipes
Oh my God,
and
there's so many.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one I started doing personally, again, these are just my things, is I got real vanilla beans. I ordered online. So it's in bulk. And you put some booze in that and you let that simmer for about 8 months and you have
Wow.
vanilla extract.
Oh,
And we're
wow.
talking real vanilla, not the imitation stuff. And that's a very expensive thing to buy at the
Yeah.
store. And so that's been a huge hit. And you look like a rock star. And
Yeah.
it was
Especially the
nothing.
time that you put into
It
that.
was nothing. It
Wow.
was nothing. Yeah. You just put it in a dark place and you just let it marinate, for long. And then you put it in bottles and voila, a little burlap.
Wow.
And
So you do it in the spring and forget about it and
yeah,
it's ready in the winter.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I actually wanted to ask you about
Yeah.
how you felt about cash and gift cards and gift
Oh,
certificates.
I'm so glad you brought it up. I was like, how am I going to weave this into the conversation? It was actually what I led off with at the library. I'm like, what is wrong with cash?
Mm.
And it is something that it really bugs people. Like they just don't, they think it's so
It's
impersonal.
not like you didn't put any thought
You put
into it.
no thought into it.
Yeah.
But did a gift card put any thought into it?
Right.
The gift cards are not recyclable, by the way.
Mhm.
They're a number three. They're like they're vinyl, right? And they're not recyclable, and they're like everywhere now. You see just tons of these things, and so it'd be one thing if you could recharge on them, and
Mhm.
add or just make it reusable, where you just kind of keep putting more money on that card. But most times they don't. They go into the disposal system, and you could do an online gift card. That's like has no footprint.
Yeah.
But again, what if you're doing to Amazon? Well, I don't like online shopping, so I don't want to do that. So you don't know, you have to know the person.
Yeah.
But Amazon, that's like a very wide variety of things. That's not going to one particular store or restaurant. So again, how personal is that?
Yeah.
And cash is the most reusable thing ever. And it's
Yeah.
green, in many
I
ways.
think teens are onto something because when you ask a teen or a preteen, both my kids, 11 and 15, what they want, it's cash and gift cards because they don't want the stuff that they're going to be given that they're not going to use.
Dead
They're
weight
so smart.
loss. They
Yes,
know
they
because
know.
they've experienced dead weight loss
Yeah,
because
and they're
they're having
tired
to be
of faking
disappointed.
that smile when they open their gifts.
Yeah.
They're like, just give me the good stuff here.
Yeah. And
Let me
who
make my
says, I mean,
choices.
again, I know it's impersonal, but who says no to cash?
Yeah.
Ever, ever.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I think is a really cool way to utilize cash or something that you like is what about a travel fund? Ask your friends and relatives that are going to be doing gifts. It's like, hey, I have a travel fund or whatever I like to do,
Yeah.
and just contribute. It's almost like a GoFundMe,
Yeah.
right?
And
And so I think that's another
yeah.
nice way to do something like that. And it's definitely something that you want, and they're contributing. So they have a vested interest to helping you get to something that you really enjoy. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a fun way to do it.
Yeah, a lot of weddings are doing that now instead
Yeah,
of getting things.
that's what gave me the idea.
Yeah, the honeymoon fund. Yeah, that's so smart.
And they don't say, ooh, cash.
No, no. I actually recently got cash as a thank you for being the soccer team manager, and
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, thank you. Like,
That's the
I'm
thing.
so
Like we
excited.
have folks in the audience, we have to have the conversation.
Yeah,
Cash is not impersonal, and it's the thing everybody wants.
yeah,
So and it's reusable. There's no waste.
yeah. What
Oh,
about paper gift certificates?
paper gift certificates are fine, again, but that's not up to you. It's
Yeah.
up to the store, the retailer, or the restaurant that does that. Again, online is the same thing.
Mhm.
But I'm also going to say that this is the other thing about gift cards that people don't understand. And I don't have the exact stats. Maybe we can put that superimposed in your post production here. But everybody has, or I was thinking, no, sorry, 50% of the public has a gift card in a drawer that they haven't used.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think the retailers like to push gift cards? because they know the chances of you not using it or using it fully are
Yeah.
there, and then you're going to forget about it. So they actually make out way better with that,
Yeah.
with very little cost on their end. And so we forget about the gift cards.
I have a $5 Krispy Kreme
Yeah.
gift card that's been in my wallet for like
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah. Krispy Kreme made that money a long time
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
I'll
So
probably never
so that's
use it.
another thing. So you forget about it, lose it, or whatever. And so they have a chance to make a lot more money on that. Whereas the cash, you're going to use it unless you dropped it $20 in a parking lot or something.
So reusing items is a
Mhm.
great way to get things out of the landfill. I know you
Mhm.
talked about that earlier. What are some of your favorite stores or stores that you know of in Burbank where people can shop for
Yeah.
reusable items as gifts?
Well, one of the cool things about Burbank, we have this business district called Magnolia Park. And I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Just a
Ashley,
little
but
bit.
yeah. And they have so many. It's like one of my favorite things to suggest to people because not that I'm picking winners and losers as far as where to shop, but there's a lot of diverse
Yeah.
opportunities that are very unique and cool to find, things that have been gently used or they're vintage or they're
Yeah.
antiques. And I think that's a really cool thing. You can also, find something that was broken. One of my favorite stories is a couple years ago we were doing a thing called the Fix It Clinic,
I
and
remember
and the
that.
Fix It Clinics are things where you get people that come in and they're handy, they're tinkerers, and then the public brings in things aren't working anymore or broken, and then they work together. So it's kind of like the teach the person to fish rather
Yeah.
than fix it for them, right? And so they work together, they open it up, they tinker it, and my favorite story was the first person we ever worked with at the first Fix It Clinic. But this woman had a Tiffany table lamp that it was her husband's grandmother's, and it had been in a closet for 10 years, and it was
Wow.
beautiful. And it just needed to be rewired. And so she worked with the tinkerer, and she rewired it and gave it to her husband for Christmas.
That's
Okay,
beautiful.
like how cool
Yeah.
is that? And there was just something that was just sitting around
Yeah.
that they probably even thought about, well, let's get rid of it. And she brought something that meant something.
Yeah.
And it also was something she did. I mean, she could have dropped it off too and got it
Yeah.
rewired, which is also nice, but she did that. So there are opportunities. There's makers space. There's a thing in Pasadena called the Repair Cafe that they have periodically. So there's opportunities, or
Yeah.
just there's YouTube videos on how to do stuff like that. But if you found something that was laying around, or repurposing it in some way. Like one of the things I also talked about, I thought was really good, and when I went down my rabbit hole of research for ideas, was taking old pillows, old, just throw pillows that you don't like anymore, and redecorating, repurposing, and then make them holiday ones.
Oh, that's a
So
great
then that's a
idea.
decorative thing that you can do that you bring out during the holiday time.
Yeah.
Burlap is your friend. Burlap can make anything look really wintry. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of Etsy. Go down that rabbit hole, folks, on the Etsy on repurposing.
I don't think it was Christmas, but I think it was for Father's Day. My husband has all these watches, and they were all
Oh,
broken. The clasp or the
mhm.
time, whatever. And so one year, I just took them all into a shop. It was so cheap,
Yeah.
couldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, why was I holding on to this for so long? And got all his watches fixed, and then gave it back to him as a gift, and
Did
he
he love it?
loved
And he
it
loved it
so
because it was
much.
an errand that he had forgotten about, dreaded, or whatever,
Yes.
and you went and did it, and it wasn't so, it wasn't hard at all. And the cool thing is you supported a local business because
Yeah.
we are losing this brain trust of people who know how to fix things. And so I get my shoes repaired. I mean,
Mhm.
I am trying to, my vacuum, I get repaired. I'm always trying to fix things. And sometimes they'll say, it'd be cheaper if you just
Yeah.
get a new. But it's really a cool way to value what we have already and support local businesses and
Yeah.
keep this alive because when these businesses close, we lose, that ability
Yeah.
and that mindset.
That's really cool. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The white elephant. The
Oh,
worst game ever invented, also the funnest
the
game.
gift
Um,
exchange.
but you always go in thinking like I'm bringing this really cool gift that it's like, like I always put in like dinosaur taco holders and like who else wants that but me, probably.
I would not like that. That
Yeah.
would be a deadweight loss.
See? To me, I think that's super cool.
I'd be giving that away to somebody
Yeah.
else.
And then you leave usually with something that you never
Yep.
wanted, right?
That's
And it
pretty.
gets shoved into the closet to give away to somebody the
Yeah.
next year.
Or it's at your garage sale.
Yeah. It's you're buying things and just throwing them out. So what what alternatives are there for holiday games, white elephant games that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Is it at your workplace, or is it with your family? Because there's the secret Santas. There's the I
Hmm.
drew a name. There's all different kinds of exchanges. And going back to what I originally said, what kind of got me in this mindset 20 years ago is our family was getting so big. And I didn't know a lot of people that were in the gift exchange. And it was really frustrating. And we had a limit. I think it was like, this was 20 years ago, but I think we had a $30 limit or
Yeah.
$40. So it's like, oh, here's my $30 gift. Here's your $30 gift. I mean, it just seems so silly, right?
Yeah.
And
And
so
you find value in something that's $30 that you might think that that's worth $5 to you,
right,
right?
and that's right, so you've got the loss of it too,
Yeah.
but it's here, it's like $30, $30. Well, why didn't I just buy a $30 gift for myself, right? So that's
Yes.
again, you start to get that impersonal thing, and I know that's not what the holidays are about,
Yeah.
but it makes you think about it. So some of the things that one of the things I instituted, again, back then, was, you know what? Instead of $30 in shopping for people that shop for themselves that are really hard to buy or you don't know them, why don't we just take that $30 and donate it as a family?
Hmm.
And then one person gets to pick the charity every year. And then you do this as a family, and then you get together and you just celebrate.
That's a great
And it
idea.
was a game changer because we didn't have that stress. And yes, if you have kids, of course, you're going to just buy for them and
Yeah.
things like that. But that ancillary stuff that's not as important to you, or that we just do it because we feel like we got to do it in the office place or it's fun. I mean, maybe there's other ways we can have fun. And
Mhm.
maybe there's games and things like that we can do without that. Again, going to the burden of buying something
Yeah.
because you can't buy a really nice gift. You're always going to have budget constraints with the limits. So think about something like that is to
Yeah.
do maybe something grouped together or go bowling, do something that's fun, more team building than,
Yeah.
that
I do feel
exchange.
like you do miss a lot of the Christmas spirit, the holiday spirit when you're so stressed with money and buying gifts and going through your list of who's got who and how to get it to them that you don't enjoy the time
Mm-mm. It
or the
goes so
parties.
fast.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the holiday, it's just,
Yeah.
you're still in the zone and then you got to clean it all up.
Yeah.
Well, if you donate it to a charity, there's
Yeah.
no cleanup other than maybe, the beverages that you were consuming.
That's a great idea. Maybe we'll do that this
See,
year.
I'm putting this,
I do like that.
someone had to say these
Yeah.
things, folks.
Well, we slowly we went from everybody gives every single person a gift. And then it was like, okay, let's not do the
Yep.
adults. Like let's just spoil the kids.
Christmas
And
is
we
for the
still did
kids.
the
Yeah.
white elephant, And then somebody's like never happy with their white elephant
Yep.
gift. So
Uh-huh.
it's like just I love the donation idea. Good
Yeah.
idea.
I mean, it just again, it doesn't even have to be that. I'm sure people are way more creative than I am,
Yeah.
or we've got this source called the internet, and there's so many different ideas.
Yeah.
But just be thinking about it a little bit differently rather than I have to do it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Or again, you know what, Ashley, I'm gonna, have somebody come in and clean your house.
Ooh.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
who couldn't use that? But
Yeah.
then some people are like, no, I don't want people coming to my house.
Yeah.
So you really have to know what that is. But what if we go out to eat?
Yeah.
That's an easy. You have to
I
eat.
do love experiences more
Yeah.
than things. And there's so many things in Burbank and LA. You can give, a membership to the Arboretum or the zoo, and those are really meaningful and they last a long time.
Absolutely.
Those are great ideas.
And if the holidays are about meaningful things,
Yeah.
we need to be starting to think about meaningful things
Yeah.
instead of things that don't have meaning, but we're checking off a box
Yeah.
because we feel we have to.
I
Yeah.
love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and then we will be right back.
How would you like your business advertised in this very spot? myBurbank Talks is looking for local businesses interested in a 30-second spot to appear in our podcasts. If you're interested, please email advertising@myburbank.com and we'll be glad to discuss all the exciting possibilities with you. Now, back to our podcast.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to get into wrapping,
Oh,
gift
yes.
wrapping. I just think about Christmas morning and the trash bag full
Oh.
of ribbons and bows and tissue paper and torn gift
Mhm.
bags. So what are the worst materials to use in gift wrapping and
Yeah.
some alternatives?
Well, just from the packaging or the wrapping itself, I mean, I'm gonna just challenge you again. Rethink the wrap. I mean, does it? It's funny. I have a niece that sent me a gift, and I also tell my family, do not get me anything. I need to get rid of things. I am like a wash in things, and I'm trying to go downsize. But my niece sent me because she felt she had to, but she purposely reused the box, and she did not wrap it, and she
Oh,
made a note to tell me that. that was the best gift of all, was the fact that she thought about me
Yeah.
and made her think differently too, which something would have made her really uncomfortable because it's
Yeah.
just such against the norm. And she didn't do that. But I think with the wrapping paper, you have to understand, if we can't recycle it, it doesn't matter if it can go into the blue bin or not. It's got to be something that our paper buyers are going to like, or we
Mhm.
can sort. And so some of the biggest offenders that we get in the recycling are going to be glossy, metallic, glittery, because that just devalues
Yeah.
the grade of paper. Ribbons, bows, all those things.
Pretty much everything that wraps
Pretty
a gift.
much, right? I mean, if you did, like, again, basic wrapping paper that's not super
The
shiny,
butcher
that's fine.
paper.
That's fine. But again, wrapping paper is expensive. I mean, I know a lot of people go to the stores after the holidays to get discounted wrapping paper, but you got to store that all year.
Yeah.
It's still expensive. Why can't some of the wrapping paper be reused? Like
Yeah.
when I was growing up, that's what we did, man. We opened it up. Now,
Very
maybe kids
carefully.
won't do that, but we did it very carefully. And we put that in a pile with the other rolls and we reused that
Yeah.
every year. The cards too. But there's also gift bags that are completely that's one thing I love about gift bags. We really don't see that much in the disposal
Mhm.
because they just scream reusable, right?
Everybody has a closet with gift
Yeah.
bags
So
stored
gift
in
bags
there.
are amazing, or just a box that's pre-wrapped. There's some of
Yeah.
those too, and maybe it's not as easy to keep people from peeking. So I used to do, like, I just have empty boxes with my husband, that are pre-wrapped boxes. They're just decorative, and there's nothing in them. And then I'm hiding everything, and
Oh,
then
that's funny.
yeah, and then I fill it right before we celebrate. So there's no
Aw.
the temptation, or if I'm not around, that they're gonna peek. But
Yeah.
for the most part, that's one of the things. But again, finding creative ways. I think also with kids, you could also make it a scavenger hunt where there's like just a
Mm.
little card with a clue and it's hidden somewhere, just like Easter.
Yeah.
So you could do that so it's not so much packaging, especially the stuff that's really hard to wrap. That we're
Yeah.
using a lot of excess.
What about newspapers? Can you?
Oh God, yeah, that's kicking it old school,
Yeah,
right?
that
If
would
you
be kind of
if you can
cute.
source the newspapers, I love it. Circulars,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's one of my favorites, right? But even something that just old papers that for whatever reason, anything creative. There is I can't think of the name of it, but I think it's a Japanese way to fold, where you take towels, like you could do tea towels, you could take other types of towels, scarves, and wrap them in a beautiful way. There's all kinds of online
Oh.
tips on how to do that, and that makes it really beautiful. And then it could be a scarf that they get,
Yeah.
or it's just excess stuff that you have and towels
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I was actually at a white elephant game, and it was our favorite things. And there was a gift basket, and it was wrapped with a blanket that was part of the gift, and I thought that was so creative.
exactly.
Yeah.
So again, you don't have to use paper.
Yeah.
Paper comes from trees. Let's save some trees and let's get a little bit more creative
Yeah.
and incorporate other parts of our gift together. One of my other favorite things to do, this is my mother-in-law used to do it, because again, people who know me, I get more joy out of people that learn to figure out how to do something with less impact. Like, that is like my greatest joy. And so gift card or greeting cards are so expensive. I'm not talking about just the Christmas ones that you send out, which a lot of people don't even do that anymore, but just the gift, just a card. And she would write her greeting to me with a Post-it note
Oh.
inside the card, and the card was completely reusable. I could give that to
Oh.
somebody else. And if greeting cards are like $5-6 now,
Yeah.
it's a way to have that be reused for somebody else.
That's
So I
really
always
cute.
love that. I thought that's just such a neat thing. Is like you just put on the Post-it.
Yeah. That's a really. I've never even heard of
And the
that.
gift card is now a gift that you can give to somebody
Yeah.
else, unless you want to put the Post-it and keep it going.
um. Well, with shopping comes tons of bags and
Mhm.
boxes.
Yeah.
So, how does that get recycled at the recycling center, or does it, or how? Where do they go?
You're talking about plastic bags? Oh my
Like
gosh.
you're
Okay.
at Target and you're
Yeah.
getting those plastic bags.
Yeah. So we do not accept that in your traditional recycling, with all your mixed materials, because those are in a category we call tanglers.
Mm.
Just like with ribbons, I was going to mention that earlier. Some of the things that we get, Christmas, the string lights, things like that. Those are all tanglers that will wrap around our machinery and can really cause a lot of not only damage, but we have to clean that out periodically throughout the day. Like, I think 4 times a day we have to clean out our recycling screens, which is very expensive equipment.
Yeah.
To bring out the grocery bags and the shrink wrap, and again the other kinds of tanglers. So we don't want that stuff. We can't really recycle it. And it just is more hassle that we have to manage. But you can, if you can't reduce and reuse the
Mm-hmm.
bag, then there are opportunities to drop that off because you could. There's participating retailers, and you've probably seen it at your grocery store. Well, they have a plastic bag collection, and so you just bag and bag those things to weight it down.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's too much for you to handle at your house, then you drop it off at the grocery store or a participating retailer that has a plastic bag collection, and then you can recycle because they've got a program because they're not dealing with thousands of materials like we
Right.
are,
It's a
right?
specialty
It's specialty.
recycling.
It's just that item, and
Yeah.
they've already get enough bags in their the back of house from their warehouse from all the goods and merchandise. So they've already got a program for that. So it's very specialized. So it
Yeah.
just takes some effort on the public, but we definitely don't want them because they become litter in transit because they're aerodynamic and they just
Yeah.
really are problematic loose like that. But in a collection program that's designated for it, it can actually be recycled.
Okay.
You're always going to want to reduce and reuse if you can.
Yeah.
And I will dare to challenge anybody that a plastic bag is not single use. It
Yeah.
can be reused. And if you're
Yeah.
dragging that to the collection at the retailer, maybe you could use some of those bags for the new shopping you're going to do.
Absolutely. I always have them in my car, and we stuff them in our Halloween
Yeah.
decorations as like humans. So we
Yeah.
just stuff them into shirts and make bodies out of them.
Make ghosts out of them for Halloween.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
So
lot
much
of
you
ways
can
to
do.
repurpose it too, but it
Yeah.
is a recyclable material. But again, we're always going to want to
Yeah.
encourage, reduce, and reuse it where you can.
And what about Amazon boxes
Mhm.
and then those white like bubbly envelopes from
Yeah, the
Amazon?
mailing, the shipping,
Yeah.
envelopes. Yeah, so those actually, start with the envelopes. Those are actually, depending on what the company, but I know for a fact Amazon's, if you look at it, they actually have instructions on its recyclability.
Oh.
So it'll say there's like usually two of the triangles, the recycling symbols. One will say remove, it'll have like a strike through it and it'll say remove the shipping label. This shows you that they don't want that label, right? And then the rest of the envelope, because it's part of that same kind of material, it's a plastic film
Mhm.
category that your grocery bag is or your dry cleaning bags are. They're kind of the same category. It's a number 4 plastic. That can actually be taken to the collection as well or the retailer.
So it cannot go into the recycling bin.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Yes, but it can be
Because you see
dropped
that
off.
little symbol and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
recycle.
well, of course. And that's so sad because you can't listen, you can't pay attention to
Yeah.
that symbol. Unfortunately, you may, hopefully in the future, some legislation is going to be able to handle some of this confusion, but for the most part, yes. For those envelopes, do not put those in the container. They are definitely part of that Tangler group,
Okay.
but you can drop that off with your plastic bags.
And boxes.
Oh, yeah, sorry, boxes. And now we love boxes. Again, I will still challenge people to try and reuse it as much as possible. But boxes, you need to break those down for multiple reasons. First of all, we want your cart to close or your bin if you're in an apartment. We want that to close because lots of things can happen. Things can fly out if it rains, all these different things. So we want the container to close. And if you have boxes that are not broken down, you have less room in your cart. The other reason is when you break it down, all of that packaging and packing material will be out too. Because we don't want that stuff all stuffed together.
Yeah.
We don't like anything stuffed. We want everything loose. So keep it loose, brah. Which sounds really funny coming out of my mouth, but yeah, keep it loose. But we don't want things that are wadded together, and so a lot of times your boxes have a lot of packaging in them,
Yeah.
including bubble wrap,
Yep.
which is a film plastic, styrofoam material, which is actually called polystyrene. And even just the bags that things that the clear plastic bags that
Yeah.
that secure things, all of that stuff. If you don't break your boxes down, are more likely to be in there, and that's a contaminant for us. That
So what happens
it's trash.
if this box, let's say, has styrofoam or plastic in it or tape on the box,
Mhm.
comes to the recycling center? What happens?
Well, the adhesives, again, even though it'd be nice to have less of the adhesives, but our paper mills can handle it for the most part, but it does degrade it a little bit. But we want that packing material because a lot of it, sometimes it's paper, like stuff that just kind of gets wrapped around or it's wadded paper material, almost like a craft paper, that thicker
Yeah.
stuff. That's recyclable. That's fine. But we still don't want it wadded inside a box. We want that loose. But the polystyrene stuff, the foam stuff is absolutely not recyclable. So why even put it in your blue bin? Because it's coming to us to be sorted out through recycling, and we can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be trash, and then it's going to take the scenic route to the landfill. This is like 3 times more expensive, and it's still going to be in the trash anyway. So really understand what goes where and why. And so, like I said, if it's an overwrap, that probably is something that can go with your plastic bag to be dropped off. So, really, again, breaking down that box is the essential key for many reasons, but it gets that stuff out. And then you can separate the packaging to what we can recycle, and then the stuff that's just going to go in your black cart.
Incredible. Let's talk about food waste,
Oh,
because I
yes.
feel like with the holidays comes
Yeah.
a lot of food waste.
Yes.
And
Indulging.
it goes to the landfill. And tell me why food waste in the landfill is so bad.
Yeah. So we have a law in the state of California called SB 1383, which means SB is Senate bill. That's where it originated, and it's a massive. It's probably one of the biggest things to happen with disposal laws since recycling was introduced 30 some years ago. And so the thing about food, not only do we go over the top over the holidays, and we waste food all throughout the year. So it's a problem at any time. 17% of the material going into California landfills traditionally has been food. And what happens is that food was not designed to go into landfill, because in landfill, I call it like the space bag. You know, the space bags that you have when you have too many sweaters, and you put it in the bag, you suck out all the oxygen, right? So it now can condense down. Or when you buy a mattress and it comes in a little box, and a day later it's a mattress. That's because the oxygen is filling it up. So when oxygen is taken out of things, it actually compresses it. Well, the oxygen is an important thing for our microorganisms, our fungus, our bacteria that break down our food waste and organic material. In a landfill, because we have to compress that landfill to make room, right? It's very inhospitable for those microorganisms to exist. And so it takes so long for food to break down. And that's causing methane emissions. So it's an off-gassing process that's heating up our planet. So methane emissions are a greenhouse gas emission. And we've talked about carbon for so long. We focused on that. But methane was something it was something that wasn't as taken as seriously. And we found that was a huge mistake to ignore methane, because it's 84 times more potent in the first couple of decades than carbon emissions. Carbons last longer. We're still talking hundreds of years for carbon and decades for methane. So that off-gassing is a really bad problem. That's why your garbage smells, and that's why you change your garbage in your kitchen before the garbage is full, is because of the smell, right? Well, that's that material that's not breaking down naturally like it would, like in the forest, right?
Yeah.
It's so condensed, and there's no oxygen, and the microorganisms can't get to it, and so it's breaking down at a very, very slow pace. And so, with all that said, I always say to people, do you think nature designed food to be waste? To go into a landfill and for nothing.
Yeah.
Food was designed to go back into the soil, to nurture the soil, feed other parts of our world. And so we have been squandering this very valuable resource. In fact, I don't even like to call it food waste. I have to struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's really food scraps, right? And so if we can harness that material and put that into useful, beneficial products like compost or energy, now we've taken something that's completely been wasted, that's causing massive amounts of harm, that's going to be affecting us in many, many ways, including higher insurance rates, and harnessing that into a beneficial use that's going to help us in many ways. That's just, why would you not do that, right? I always call food waste is one of the dumbest environmental problems and social problems we have, because people are hungry too, but it's the most solvable. And how often do you hear that?
Yeah.
Where things are actually solvable with just some good policy and some good culture shifts and building the infrastructure to make it happen. So that's what this law is. And so at the holidays, we are wasting food, like I said, all throughout the year, but there's things that we can be doing at the holidays to really bring that in and participate in the state program to create the new normal and our new traditions. But also, things that you can be doing as a family is to be really thinking about how much you're making. And if you're entertaining with guests and family, tell them about this ahead of time. So it doesn't feel weird, because I think one of the worst things is like, oh, we can't run out of food. Oh, but then you always have so much, and then it goes in the garbage.
Well, it's like you go to a potluck, so every single person's bringing a full dish.
Yeah.
And that's way too much food.
It's way too much food. And plus, you've been eating anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like your first meal in the holidays, right?
That's very true.
So you're going from party to party. So One of the things is to prevent food waste. You could tell your guests, hey, bring an extra container,
Mm.
take stuff home.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Hey, we're trying to reduce food. We're trying to have adopt better practices. We're going to have a less waste, holiday tradition. So that's one of the things. Also figuring out ways to repurpose food. There's a lot of really great tips on, just after Thanksgiving, for instance. I mean, how many other ways can you take the stuff that's left over and make new meals out
Oh,
of that? Not
yeah.
just the leftovers itself. I mean, I have so many mashed potatoes. I've been making potato cakes,
Mm-hmm.
frying them up instead of hash browns for breakfast. So there's a lot of things we could be doing on that realm as well. But this is really the new normal because it's not just something we should be doing. It's something we have to be doing. It is a state law. But I don't like to hide behind that it's a state law. It's
Yeah.
it's so simple once you start get your head around it and you
Yeah.
recognize the value of what food is that we've been so cavalier with it because 40% of all food that's grown in this country is not eaten.
That's incredible.
And then
Oh my gosh.
in LA, I think in LA County, I think it's either 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people are food insecure. They struggle. So we've got this excess production
Yeah.
and we're cavalier about wasting it. And then we've got, scarcity on other ends of the social spectrum. So if we can all be more cognizant of it, and when you go to a buffet, don't overload. I
Yeah.
love to say, firsts less, seconds more. So you can always go back and eat more.
That's very
So be
true.
conservative. But what happens is everybody like loads their plate up and they eat half of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just be conservative with that first plate. If you're entertaining, put small plates out.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, don't put big plates
Yeah.
out because again, that's just going to encourage people to fill that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have this green bucket here.
Oh yes,
from
yes. I
the
don't know if you
Burbank
can see this in
Recycling
any of
Center.
our cameras here, but I can also. I'm sure there'll be some pictures of it. But this is something that our Public Works Department, because I'm under the Public Works Department, has been giving this away to give people easier ways to manage this stuff. Because we're saying, don't put your food into the trash anymore. So this is a way to kind of manage this inside your kitchen to keep that container. And you don't need to have this. This is just, again, a courtesy. Some people might have a nicer one, but this is where you put your food in. And then on your collection day, then you can put the contents of this. You can empty that into your what we call your green cart. So where
Yeah.
your yard waste is going. So you can add food to that.
Are you allowed to put cardboard and paper into that bin?
No, we want cardboard. If it's clean and it's not soiled with
Okay.
food or liquids, we definitely want to capture that for recycling.
Okay.
But one of the categories that does fit in is pizza boxes, because pizza boxes has been one of those like the riddle of the Sphinx. Like, what do
Yeah.
I do with it? Is it recyclable? So now, what you can do is a pizza box can go in your green cart, especially if you don't have like a lot of yard waste, and you want to like make sure that food doesn't get so
Yeah.
get the yuck factor, if you will. So that's a nice barrier. But what you can also do is if there's a clean side to your pizza box, which there usually is, because
Mhm.
usually the pizza company will put like wax paper on one side. So one side tends to be much cleaner than the other. So the clean side can go in your blue. So you just rip that.
Okay.
And then the soiled end, because it's food soiled and there's no plastic on that pizza
Yeah.
box, that can go in your green cart.
Okay.
And another thing I do with it, I use it for weeds.
Oh.
So I have a yard, and so for weed mitigation, I just put
Yeah.
my pizza boxes
Cover
down.
it?
Yeah.
Of the sunlight. That's smart.
Yeah. And it's going to break down.
Yeah.
That's carbon into your
Well,
soil.
speaking of plants, there's a big plant during the Christmas season, the Christmas tree.
Oh, yes.
Um, Who takes our Christmas trees?
Yes.
Where do they go?
Yes.
When does it start?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Spill
So
the tea.
yes. So one of the biggest things I do when I do outreach and education, and if you ever get an email from me, you're going to see my tagline is when you throw something away, there is no such thing as away, right? Everything goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the city does deal with that away in the form of your real tree, as long as they're not flocked. And you've removed all the tinsel and all the ornaments and things like that, just a clean, real tree. We have a tree collection service that starts, I think this year it's going to be January 8th. So Monday, January 8th, and then we'll go through the 26th of January.
Okay.
So you get about 3 or 4 weeks of collection there. But if you're one of those, like, I'm done with Christmas. I've had my Christmas tree up since Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And December 26th, I'm cleaning it out because there are those early birds out there.
Yeah.
Then that's a self-haul where you can take that to, we have 3 parks that have a tree collection.
Oh,
One is
okay.
McCambridge, Foy, and Verdugo. Are
You
the
just
parks.
drop your tree there?
And that
in
can
a
start on
little spot?
December 26th.
Okay.
And that also goes through the I'm sorry, December 26th through January 26th.
Okay.
So self-haul is during that at the parks, and then the city tree collection will start January
Is
8th.
that the same with real wreaths as well?
Yes, the same thing. It's the same material, right? It's all that
Mhm.
pine material. So yes, but the same thing. But if there's ribbons and decorations and things like that that are not real, or pine cones are fine if they're real, not
Yeah.
painted. But yeah, wreaths are the same type of deal.
So in a perfect world, having like a reusable tree or those artificial ones you could just use
Yeah.
for decades would be a great
Yeah.
alternative.
Yeah. I mean, you have to think about it. They are still plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of them are lighted now. So they're really, those string lights are wrapped around those trees. And a lot of times people are giving, so if it's got lights on it and it's like a permanent type of thing that you
Mhm.
bought it intentionally to be a lighted artificial tree, that's actually e-waste, right?
Mm.
So even you couldn't even cut that up and put in your trash can if you were done with it. You have to drop that off because it's an e-waste thing. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or you
Yeah.
take off all the string because it's the lights that make it
Yeah.
e-waste, right?
So
So
anything with electrical on it.
anything, yeah, e-waste in essence, just to bring it just down to the lowest point
Yeah.
is anything with a cord or a battery is
Okay.
e-waste. So your trees are e-waste if they came with the lighted things, or you just turn it in
Yeah.
because you didn't want to take the lights off. And so if you've got an artificial tree with lights and those lights some burn out, that's the biggest reason why people get rid of their artificial tree, which is it's really sad because
Yeah.
it's only not even the whole tree, and the tree
Yeah.
itself is fine, but the lights aren't working, or at least one strand or a bulb or whatever. And so then, that
Yeah.
ends up being a problem. So I would encourage people, if you do buy it, I know it's really nice to have the artificial lights, but just be cognizant.
Mhm.
Either you get it without the lights and you put them on every year, or just, if you're going to turn it in, or the tree is still fine, replace those lights
Yeah,
if
or
you've
just
had it for a
add
while.
strings onto it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so in a Scroogenomics
Yeah.
standpoint, they say that you have to keep your artificial tree for at least 20
Oh,
years
wow.
to offset the impact of making the plastic and all the other things that go with it. And then, of course, that disposal, because it's going to landfill, because
Yeah.
like there's nothing, you can't recycle it. So again, be thinking about it. Can you reuse it? Can you regift it?
Mhm.
If you've got a different room in the house, maybe the old tree can go in a different room if you got a new tree. But really trying to be thinking about how long can you keep things and reuse them and keep them in that useful life that just keeps it out of the disposal system.
So that means even if you have like a kid's toy car that's battery operated
Yep.
and it breaks, it does not go in the trash.
No. What? Yes. You're right. That's true.
Okay.
So yes, let's clarify. Yes,
Okay.
the e-waste toys are not in any container. You have to drop that off. We have a
Wow.
collection program at the Recycle Center if you're a Burbank resident, where we take all that stuff for you. So at least there's convenience, and now you know where to go.
Mhm.
But we can't. It's illegal to put any electronic material in the trash or recycling. And that includes batteries themselves.
Yeah.
Batteries are a really dangerous item. Since it is the holidays, I just want to make sure that the people out there know that battery, especially the rechargeable, that's in all of our, electronic equipment, our power tools, our vacuums, that anything that's rechargeable, those lithium ion batteries actually have a volatility to them if they are jostling around in a truck or a container and they hit like another metal item.
Mm.
So they are one of the biggest causes of fires. We've had fires at the recycle center because of batteries, even though there's a state law and we tell people not to put them in the containers, and we have a drop off. In fact, for batteries, you can drop them off even at the library. There's
Oh,
certain city
wow.
buildings you can drop off. We're trying to do everything we can to let people know that they
Yeah.
can drop off these batteries, and they still end up getting on the line, and they go through our facility jostling around, and even trucks. We had a recycling truck recently, very recently, that its load was on fire and had to they had to
Wow.
take it out and like abort mission to get the material
Yeah.
out. Because so again, if you see any truck, like a delivery truck or anything like that, on fire, if you're like driving around LA, 90% chance it's a battery. Batteries are really, really challenging.
Wow.
And I don't say that to make people freaked out. It's just store them in a way that
Yeah.
they're not jostling. If you're going to put them in your drawer, make sure that they're in a position where they're kind of like just steady
Mhm.
and they're not jostling around where they can touch each other's terminals. Even keep your original packaging for your batteries,
Okay.
right? Because then you just put them back in. That's
Yeah.
how they come. They don't sell them in a bag
Yeah.
jostled around. And so that's one of the biggest things is batteries. But I want to mention also something about toys, because whether it's e-waste toys or not, no toys are recyclable. never, never, no toy. I don't care what they are. They
Mhm.
are not recyclable. They're a huge contaminant for us, especially coming in January because kids are getting rid of their old toys, right? Because they got
Yeah.
new.
Even if they think this whole Nerf gun is all plastic,
Nope.
doesn't go.
Nope, it's not the right kind of plastic. And yep, it's not recyclable. So, but guess what? It's donatable. It's
Mhm.
shareable with others. So
Yeah.
be thinking about that to share those gifts or the stuff that was loved and maybe someone
Yeah.
else can love it again because it's just going to be trash at
Yeah.
that point at the very basic need because it cannot be recycled.
There's so many Facebook groups out there now where, one man's trash is another man's treasure,
Absolutely. Oh
and
my gosh.
I love
The
those
the
groups.
sharing sites like Buy
Mhm.
Nothing,
Yep.
which Burbank has many because it's your neighborhood. Oh my goodness. There are so many things you
Yeah.
can get rid of. I put a box out in front of in my yard, so it's my property, so I'm not, using public space. And I'm constantly, every weekend as I'm clearing things out, because I said I'm trying to minimize,
Yeah.
I just put stuff out there and, there's people just walking their dogs or walking by and the stuff is gone.
Yeah, it's exciting when
And
you come across, like, that stuff that
yeah.
something you didn't need, but somebody else does.
Absolutely. You're giving it a chance at least,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And someone else is like, wow, I was just walking my dog and look at this cool thing I just picked up.
yeah,
So it's a lovely thing to be able to share stuff. So many things that we do put in our disposal system,
yeah,
actually, if we just took a step back and we knew what we could do with it, people would actually choose giving it to somebody else over disposal if they really had an idea what people could take.
yeah,
And let's not judge just because it was something you didn't want.
yeah.
You did have it at one point.
Or maybe it was broken to you, but someone knows how to fix it,
They know
right?
exactly. So yeah, the buy nothing is one of my favorite things,
Yeah,
but there's all kinds of wonderful sites out there with various marketplaces next door, things like that, that there's opportunities
yeah,
to get all kinds of cool free stuff. You can get rid of the stuff and you can get stuff too.
yeah. Well, I wanna go back to the tree real quick
Yeah.
because you have a pretty cool tree
Oh yeah.
that you put
Yeah.
together. Why don't you tell us about that?
So I actually struggled with this because I mean, there's other things you can do. You can even rent an artificial tree.
Oh,
You can use potted trees. I mean, there's other things you can do, but I really struggled because I know a lot, folks. I see a lot, so I'm always trying to figure out how to avoid disposal because it's really just it just bothers you to see the stuff day in and day out. And so I was trying to figure out forever, and I didn't want to be a Scrooge. So I was at a liquor store, and they had this metal frame that held bottles, and they just created a wine bottle tree. Now I am not crafty, and that's the thing. I'm
mhm.
sure there's people like me out there that are not, Pinterest.
Yeah,
They like to look at Pinterest, but they don't wouldn't even know how to do something. And so I found that frame, and it's really easy. It stores like a Russian doll, and I put it's 60 bottles of beautiful green glass, and I put lights behind it and on top of it, and I just used existing decorations I had, and it's one of the coolest things. Like people get so excited, and
yeah.
I look like just a rock star, and even though I bought it,
Yeah. I've never seen anything like that till I
yeah.
saw that picture. It's so creative. There's so many fun and creative things you can do during the holiday season, right?
Yeah, and of course, if you're entertaining, then you get the fun joke to
Yeah.
say, "Well, we got into the holiday spirits," or "Look how much wine I drank to get to this,
Yeah.
beautiful thing." But it's just a really neat thing. But again, just shows people it's like I never even thought you could do something
Yeah.
like because I'm just thinking tree. We always have to have a tree. But if you look on Etsy and Pinterest, I mean, some people just paint like they have like a mural on their wall, or
Mhm.
they just put a bunch of branches together and hang it in a
Yeah.
formation. And so we can really also rethink the
Yeah.
tree itself.
Yeah. So many new traditions you can make.
Yeah. And again, it's different than who wants to do what everybody else does, right?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to we talked about so many things we can and
Yes.
cannot put in the
Yeah.
recycling center into the recycling bucket. So let's talk about the nice list. What
Yes.
nice things
We've got
can
the
we
naughty
put?
and the nice
The
list.
naughty
Yes.
list and the nice list. So I'm
So the
gonna put
thing
that
is
here.
here, I know it's hopefully we can see this here on
Gonna put
camera,
this here.
but yeah, it's pretty simple. We've wanted kind of the same things for 30 years. It really hasn't changed, even though the packaging has changed dramatically. But we still want certain kinds of plastics because not everything with the recycling symbol is recyclable. So the thing when you see that chasing arrow or that rectangle and
Mhm.
there's a number in the middle of it, that's a plastic resin identifier. But doesn't mean it's just a green light for recycling. So you have to look at the number. Let the number be your guide. So we only can take 1, 2, and 5. So those are the only kinds of plastic we can take. And we also need things to be at least 4 inches in size
Mm,
because little tiny things like bottle caps by
yeah.
themselves will fall through our recycling machinery. So we can't capture little tiny things. So just make sure, again, the item is at least, has some size to it. We love what we call fiber, but that's paper products. So anything like with the boxes and the office paper, things like that, newspapers, those are things that we can take. Metals, we love metal. We get paid in weight. Metal weighs good. It's good money for us, so we love metal. And then the glass, of course, is the other thing. That's the thing. That's the easiest thing to recognize, because the list of what we don't take, you couldn't even get it on a screen.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
massive, right? So it's better to know that,
Memorize this image.
what we can take, and not really worry about what we can't, because if you're questioning it, chances are it probably isn't recyclable.
Yeah.
So we kind of all know, really, we know what a detergent bottle
Yeah.
is going to be recyclable. But when you start getting into, things that are mixed materials together, black plastic is something that actually doesn't really have much of a market. So it's not something really can recycle. So there's a lot of that stuff. But how would you memorize that? I don't
Yeah.
expect people to have to memorize it, because that's really confusing. And people just get frustrated. So we have this really great site called Where It Goes. And that can be found on our Recycle Center page on our website, but you can also just Google search Where It Goes Burbank. And that is a guide, an online searchable guide that has information on over 400 materials.
Wow.
So we call it answers at your disposal, right? Because I don't know what you know and what you know. And if you get something like a helium tank,
Yeah.
well, it's metal, but it's got gas in it. That might be dangerous. Maybe not want to put that in there.
Yeah.
What do I do with it? And so this Where It Goes guide it's like I'm on everybody's
Yeah.
shoulder 24/7. So you have your guru right
I
with
love
you
that.
behind this. So the Where It Goes is a really great tool. So you don't have to guess. We don't want this to be a
Yeah.
secret handshake and you're in the cool kids club. We want everybody to know
Yeah.
what we want, and more importantly, what we don't want.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things we don't want in recycling is the plastic bag. I mentioned that before, the tanglers and things like that. But anything that's going to contaminate, anything that is not recyclable because we can't sell it, it's trash, right?
Mhm.
So again, anything that we don't want, we don't want. So just remember what we do. And if you have any questions, go to the Where It Goes guide.
Is this available? Because I think this is such a
Yeah.
great image that people can print out.
Yeah, you can put that on
and
your
put that-
container.
yeah, put on your fridge, and you can scan really quickly
Yep.
if you want to know where something goes.
So yeah, and we have that in trash and in organics, 'cause organics can throw people off a little
Yeah.
bit too. And just on the organics, just so you know, when we mean the organics, we mean food, we mean yard waste. So just your yard clippings, and then your food, anything. If you could have eaten it, nature could. So
Mm.
everything from, meat, dairy, and bones, not just produce, anything that is rotting, sugary, even processed food can go in your green cart now.
I'm
So
gonna
we've
ask a
got,
weird question
yeah,
about that. Dog poop.
Yep.
Where do people put dog poop?
that's one of the only organic things that we would say no. That's a trash
Definitely a
item.
no.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. That one does get and kitty litter too is the
Mhm.
same thing. Those are trash items. They're kind of, biologics, which is kind of like with diapers and things like that.
Yeah.
So those are just things that we just cannot, there's pathogens in them that just are not good for the compost. So that stuff, even if it's in a compostable bag,
Okay.
which isn't really compostable, but that's another story. But anyway,
Yeah.
put that stuff in the trash. But I just wanted to mention this sign. If they do want to print it out, it is available on our website, burbankrecycle.org, and you go to the residential section, and we have this you can download it, and you can also get it in Spanish and Armenian.
Oh, okay.
So we have it in different languages, and then it's available at many city buildings, including the libraries.
Well, we'll put a link to it in the
Yeah.
bio, along with the Where It Goes site.
Yes.
And if you want to learn more, you have a great program called Waste Warriors,
Oh, yes,
right? Which
yes.
you have classes starting
my baby.
January 13th.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that is and how we can learn more.
This is my favorite thing that I do, because I have direct connection to 25 residents that really care about these. They don't have the knowledge base like I do yet, right? So that's what I'm imparting on them. But they get together because sometimes when people start to care about these things, they sometimes feel alone. They feel like, their coworkers don't care, or their family and friends, and they feel really insecure about talking about these things, and they still don't have all the knowledge that they think they should have. And so they feel really isolated. Well, you're with 25 people just like you. So it's a community building program as much as anything. I also say it's civics as much as it is about waste too, because people are learning how these systems work together. It's not just, okay, we're going to recycle better, or this is recycling, this is not. We're learning how the systems work of consumption. and how we get our products and to recognize these things. And so there's speakers, there's lectures by me, and then there's tours and things like that. So they get their minds really just
Yeah.
open to so many different possibilities to not only learn about how we got here, but if we don't have correct information, how are we going to solve these problems? So if we can trust in the public and give them this information and share with them,
Yeah.
it's amazing the amount of what I call the multiplier effect, and like how much, fruit is drawn from all these seeds that we're planting with the public. And waste warriors go on to get to know each other through once you go through the program, you're part of our alumni.
Mm-hmm.
And we do, things together and stuff like that. But also you find something, maybe you have something really in common professionally with somebody. And so some people have gone on to do partnerships together. Many of them are parents, and maybe they didn't think their schools were doing enough. And so they formed a group called the Burbank Eco Council, where they're doing things to help impart sustainable practices in their schools to build pilot.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things. One helped write legislation to get dishwashers in the state of California. I mean,
Wow.
some people just recycle better and you never see them again. But it's a really great thing because we've given them the knowledge base that how would they know this stuff. And once they do that, then they share it with their family and friends, because I can't do it all,
Yeah.
or an ad can't do it all. But when someone is listening to a friend of theirs, that they become the resource, it really then spreads a wider net around the culture, and how we can really
Yeah.
get people informed rather than just thinking, oh, I've recycled, I've saved the earth, right? Because it's not really the case. It's really about understanding how consumption works, and that everything we consume and we don't keep with us has to
Yeah.
go through a disposal system, and that's a big thing. So the waste warriors ends up being this kind of this I guess this army that we're building of people who really have this great information, and then take that information and do what they want
Yeah.
from it from there. And some people have even changed their careers.
Wow.
Yeah, because of the
Well, it is
program.
it's a whole mindset. It's like we don't think about where our food comes. We don't think where our products
Yeah.
come from. It's out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah.
And when things become apparent to us and in our face, we have feelings towards it and we're invested in it because we understand. And so I think that's what your program really does is get people to understand what our city is doing to
hmm
mitigate these kinds of
Yep.
things, how it works, how the landfill works, how the recycling center works, and then you feel invested in it.
Right.
You're a part of it, and you can't look the other way after that.
Once those eyes are open, it's
Yeah.
hard to close them again. And it's so funny because it's 8 classes, and I put a lot into this, right? This is my baby. And one of the most, popular classes is the landfill tour.
Mhm.
We have a wonderful landfill, wonderful crew, but I'm just like, really, the landfill tour is the most popular when I put all this other stuff into it. But it's great because they
Yeah.
walk away, because a lot of them don't even know the city owns a landfill. So
Right.
thus they own a landfill, and then they see how well run it is.
Yeah.
They feel vested in the community.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know the city does all this stuff, because you hear about the problems, you hear about potholes, you hear about that. But you don't hear about these really cool things behind the scenes, that things are just working. So
Yeah.
how would you know?
And you
Eh,
learn what a way is, where a way
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and you see what the landfill staff or what the recycling staff have to do,
Yeah.
and so it just makes it, oh my gosh, and they want to do something
Yeah.
about it, and that's how we change. Because if we don't understand the problem, we're not going to find the right kind of solutions.
Yeah.
And when people get that information, I like to say sunlight is the best disinfectant. Problems happen in darkness, but
That's
when
true.
people understand it, it's amazing how quickly things can change just by that knowledge and that information.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, also, as you said before, the last thing I want to say is, you were saying about, we don't have any idea what a way is. We don't really think about resources. It's kind of like your kids. Do they have any real value of money?
That's
Do they
very
think money
true.
just grows on trees? It's
Yeah.
just this magic thing.
Just on that card, this magic card in my wallet.
There's more to it than lies right
Yep.
behind the surface, and that's the same type of thing. We are like that with everything. Everything we
Yeah.
use and consume came from nature. Nature is our parent
Yeah.
with the wallet.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today and teaching us. I feel like I've already learned so much, and I've talked to you so many times about these things, and I feel like I learn something new every time. But I love this approach on the holidays and how we can rethink it. So I really appreciate you coming and
Yeah,
talking to us.
great. And we can talk about the purge in January.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ashley. I really
you.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you on the next episode of My Burbank, My Community.
My Burbank Talks would like to thank all of My Burbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, UME Credit Union, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, Gain Credit Union, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, UCLA Health, Tequila's Burbank, Logix Credit Union, Hill Street Cafe, Bertain Escobar Wealth Management, and the UPS Store on 3rd Street.